There is a famous line from Western history. On the eve of the French Revolution, people were starving in the streets. Someone told Queen Marie Antoinette that the people had no bread. She allegedly replied, "Then why don't they eat cake?" That line became a timeless symbol of a ruler completely out of touch with reality. But very few people know that in China, an emperor said almost exactly the same thing. And this one is confirmed. That year, a great famine struck the north. Tens of thousands were starving to death on the roads. Officials reported the disaster to the emperor. He listened. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "If the people have no rice, why don't they eat meat porridge?" That emperor was Sima Zhong. History knows him as Jin Di, Emperor Hui of Jin. This episode is about him. He was not a tyrant, not a cruel ruler. He simply did not understand the world around him. And that is exactly what makes his story a tragedy. Not a tragedy of evil, a tragedy of a broken system that placed the wrong person in the wrong position and had no way to fix it. To understand him, we need to understand how he got onto the throne. Because that process itself was already a massive failure. Sima Zhong was the son of Jin Di, Sima Yan. From a young age, everyone could see something was different about this child. He was slow to respond. His speech was confused. He could not follow complex ideas. Court officials whispered, "This child is not fit to be crown prince." Even Sima Yan himself had doubts. So Sima Yan gave his son a test. Practical, political questions. How do you handle a famine? How do you respond to border threats? How do you balance court factions? Sima Zhong could not answer them. So his wife, nanfeng, stepped in. She found scholars to write the answers, then coached him word by word until he could recite them. Sima Yan read the responses. He nodded. Not bad. He had been fooled by the very test he designed, and so the succession was decided, not by ability, not by judgment, but by a cheat sheet. Think about how many leaders today rise to the top the same way. Not through genuine ability, but through connections, performance, and other people doing the real work behind them. In calm times, this can last a long time. But when crisis hits, the cracks appear instantly. In the year 290, Sima Yan died. Sima Zhong became emperor. The highest position in the empire fell to a man who could not govern. Sometimes officials would bring him urgent documents requiring decisions. They would explain carefully, urgently. Sima Zhong would nod, then ask, "What are we eating today?" This is not a joke. It is recorded in historical texts. Imagine being one of those officials, kneeling there, holding documents that determine the fate of millions, and the emperor is thinking about dinner. This created a dangerous vacuum. Power does not disappear. When the person at the top cannot exercise it, power flows to whoever is closest. First came Yang Jin, the Empress Dowager's father, who seized control of the court. He lasted less than a year, because nanfeng made her move. Nanfeng is the person in this story who should never be overlooked. Forceful, calculating, ruthless. When Sima Zhong took the throne, she understood one thing clearly. My husband cannot rule this empire, but I can. She launched a coup, had Yang Jin killed, and seized power. For the next 9 years, nanfeng was the real ruler of the Jinchao. She issued commands in the emperor's name. Officials knew the truth, but no one could change it. The emperor sat on the throne like a carefully arranged ornament, attending ceremonies, stamping documents, never making a real decision. Think of a company where the CEO is completely unfit, but his wife runs everything behind the scenes. Short term, the company still functions. But everyone inside knows where the real power is, and every executive starts thinking, if I control the CEO, I control everything. That structure is not stability. It is a ticking bomb. Nanfeng's 9 years in power was the countdown. Her fatal mistake was moving against the crown prince. She had him removed, then poisoned. That decision shattered everything. The crown prince was connected to the royal princes. Killing him was a declaration of war against the entire Sima clan. Zhao Sima Lun raised his army, deposed, executed her, then declared himself in control. But the other princes refused. Why you? So a second prince raised an army, then a third, then a fourth. Each declared the same thing. I am here to protect the emperor. Each was doing the same thing, fighting to control a man who could not control himself. This was the War of the 8 Princes. Not foreign invasion, not peasant uprising. The emperor's own relatives tearing the empire apart to control a puppet. The war lasted 16 years. The capital was attacked 9 times. Sima Zhong was passed from faction to faction like an object, sometimes under house arrest, sometimes forced to flee. There is one moment that captures everything. During one battle, Sima Zhong became separated from his escort. He was alone on a road with nothing. An ordinary peasant recognized him and offered him a bowl of coarse grain. The Son of Heaven accepted food from a stranger on the road. The man who once asked why people didn't eat meat porridge was now surviving on a stranger's charity. That is not irony. That is what institutional collapse actually looks like. While the princes destroyed each other, the nomadic groups on the borders were watching. They had armies. They had leaders. They had seen how weak the center was. In the year 311, Luoyang fell. A few years later, Chang'an fell. The western Sima Zhong had died 2 years before. Luoyang fell. No battlefield, no final confrontation. Just a quiet cup of poison passed to him in the dark. The most powerless emperor in Chinese history ended without ceremony. Back to where we started. Marie Antoinette said, "Why don't they eat cake?" Sima Zhong said, "Why don't they eat meat porridge?" 2 people, 1,500 years apart, saying almost the same thing. But their endings were different. Marie Antoinette was sent to the guillotine. Publicly, dramatically. Sima Zhong died from a quiet cup of poison. No trial, no crowds. One empire ended with a bang. One rotted slowly from within. 2 different collapses, but the same root cause, a system that placed the wrong person in the most critical position and had no mechanism to correct that mistake. The lesson of Jin Yu is not simply, don't put the wrong person in charge. The real lesson is this: any system that depends entirely on the quality of the person at the top will eventually meet its Sima Zhong, because no selection process is perfect. The wrong person will eventually reach the right position. And when that happens, only the system itself can survive it, whether it is strong enough to function without a capable leader at the top. The Jin Chao's system was not strong enough, so it collapsed. That was the story of Jin Huidi, and it is a mirror that every institution, ancient or modern, should look into carefully.